And this morning, we will see the finals for the Division I fours, second eights, and first eights, and crown the overall team champion. And today, while we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX, this is also the 25th anniversary of the NCAA Women's Rowing Championships. I'd like to acknowledge that two of our referees working this weekend, Chris Lang and Barb Groot, were at the first championship in 1997. In addition, our chief referee, Melissa Chun, was a 2006 NCAA champion and is the first NCAA competitor to chief at this championship event. We acknowledge and celebrate the efforts of these women as we come together today to motivate, encourage, and support our athletes. Getting into the racing this morning, we will kick it off with the Final Four, or the D-level final for our Division I fours. In Lane 2, Boston University. Lane 3, Northeastern. Lane 4, Rhode Island. And Lane 5, Jacksonville. We'll turn it over to Lindsay Shoup and David Wyatt to bring you the first 1,500 meters of this championship race.
All right, welcome to Championship Sunday here at Nathan Benderson Park. My name is David Wyatt. I'm joined by 2008 Olympic gold medalist Lindsay Shoup. We're in a commentary car on the wave attenuator, and we're going to try to bring you the action to the best of our eyes and mouths as we watch these 12 races go off this morning, and we crown national champions in these respective boat classes, as well as for the team championship. As we see all four of these boats sitting ready, boots are down, we are on the race course, and we'll see what happens here. This is for places 19 through 22 in the nation for the year 2022. And it looks like in the center, and so the center boats all morning long likely are the ones that have come in and qualified better than the others. So lanes 3 and 4, Northeastern and Rhode Island, qualified slightly better than Boston University and Jacksonville. And Lindsay, it looks like early on Northeastern trying to go to the lead.
It is Northeastern. They didn't stay up at a particularly high rate off of their start. It seems that they've lengthened quite early, maybe about 150, 200 meters into this race. But in doing so, it's allowed them to find their efficient rhythm that's going to help carry them down the course. And as they've lengthened, just about every stroke they've taken, it's allowed them to inch out on the field. It is in lane 4, Rhode Island, who is moving along with them in the black hull there. And so as they too have lengthened out, they've started to pace Northeastern. Both Northeastern and Rhode Island are their respective conference champions. Northeastern out of Colonial, Rhode Island out of the Atlantic 10, Jacksonville out of the MAC, and Boston University out of the Patriot League. All four of these crews won their respective conferences to make their way to this 2022 NCAA Women's Rowing Championship.
And you're seeing Northeastern extend their lead at 400 meters. They're trying to break the overlap now on second place Rhode Island. Rhode Island is still contending with a boat from Jacksonville University right in front of us here that is very game to the challenge. The Jacksonville boat still has a nice overlap with Rhode Island as we come through 500 meters. It is a full length advantage now for Northeastern, and maybe now they have just broken the overlap on Rhode Island. Rhode Island maintains just a 3/4 length advantage on Jacksonville University. And then I'm watching the boat from Boston University on the far side from where we are and from the drone shot. And they are starting to move up in that silver boat and try to bring it to level with Jacksonville. So obviously in Boston University, they didn't want to lose touch, and they clearly put on some sort of move at 500 meters, and it's working for them. They've got some momentum.
All four of these boats appear to be quite relaxed in their rhythms here. Everyone is biding their time at this point. They're not, whatever their coxswains are saying, they aren't allowing their particular position, if they're trailing at this point, to get to them. They're staying internal. And as they do that, let's speak about Boston over on the far side in lane 2 in that silver hull wearing the red. They are, as they're moving into this 750 meters into the race, they are clawing their way back into the field. And as they cross over 750, it seems that they are taking quite a bit of the margin that Rhode Island had on them. I can imagine that coxswain certainly sees that black hole out of Rhode Island, might be calling off of them, encouraging her athletes to reel them in stroke per stroke, which then might slingshot them up into the lead that Northeastern has taken from the very beginning. But as Northeastern continues at their very methodical rate, they definitely still have open water over the second place crew out of Rhode Island.
So I've got Rhode Island and I've got Northeastern both at 35 strokes a minute. Jacksonville University quite a bit higher, 38 strokes a minute. And as soon as Jacksonville came out of my mouth, I watched their bow surge up a little bit. But right now it is Rhode Island who has slightly broken the overlap on Jacksonville. So we do, at 1,000 meters, looking at sort of where the field stands, it is relatively spaced out. But one of the fastest movers again now is Boston University on the far side. So are they going to be able to bring it to level with Jacksonville University? I'm watching the BU coxswain. She's looking to her right. She can see all of her competitors that way, which I've remarked earlier in the weekend is sometimes really an advantage for a coxswain, because if you only have to look one way and you can get everybody in your vision, it's much easier to call off of them. Here we go. It is up front, Northeastern, one full length of open water back to Rhode Island. Rhode Island with a couple of seats of open water back to Jacksonville. Jacksonville just hanging on to third place, but here comes BU.
And BU is still sitting there over on that far side of the race course. We are in this chevron pattern that you might expect based on the speeds coming into this final, where the center lanes are the ones out in front and the outside lanes are a little bit trailing. But the entire time that we've been speaking about Northeastern extending their lead, Rhode Island still in second behind them, Boston University is showing their gumption, their grit, their desire to get back into at least the top two positions in this race.
Yeah, and they continue to move. They can't quite yet bring it to level with Jacksonville University, can Boston University, but they are rowing at a lower stroke rating than Jacksonville. So will that come into play? Typically, it would sort of really rear its head in this third 500. We are about 1,400 meters into this 2,000-meter race course with your leader. Continues to be Northeastern. Northeastern was still a full length of open water back to Rhode Island. Rhode Island still maintains a couple of seats of open water. It's really been a consistent just 2 to 3 seats of open water back to Jacksonville University, who is hanging on, rowing at that higher stroke rating, ahead of Boston University.
And Rhode Island does appear that they want to make sure that they secure their second place finish at minimum in this piece, because it looks as though they elevated a bit before the 500 in order to see if they could extend their lead on the two trailing boats out of Jacksonville and Boston.
We'll hand it to you, Adrian. First race of Championship Sunday here at the 2022 NCAA Championships.
Absolutely great racing here. We see a little bit of spread between these boats, but each of these teams just really focusing on their own race, making sure that they are executing their race plan. Northeastern out in front, looking very, very solid, kind of playing a little bit of defense here as they look at a pretty good charge coming out of Rhode Island, the Rams. And again, as Lindsay had attested, each of these teams, their conference championship, their conference championship winner. So even in this D-level final, we are looking at teams that had progressed through their season to the pinnacle of their conference. And that just attests to the depth of this NCAA championship. So coming into these final strokes, about 200 meters separating these crews from the end of their appearance here at these championships. Each team trying to improve on what they did in previous years. Northeastern looking very strong with a good amount of open water between themselves and Rhode Island. Rhode Island also holding off a nice charge here by Jacksonville out of lane 5. Jacksonville just ahead of Boston University. Winding it up here for their sprint. It looks like Northeastern will continue to hold on to that lead. The Rams of Rhode Island with an open water lead over both Jacksonville and Boston. Boston and Jacksonville very close to each other for that third or fourth place position. Really great sprint here by Boston University in these final strokes. And here comes Jacksonville and now Boston. Lane 4, Syracuse. Lane 5, Pennsylvania. Lane 6, Gonzaga.
And we're off for the Division I fours final three, the C-level final that will determine places 13 through 18 in the nation in this women's four event. Over on that far side in the blue, we do have Duke, followed by Oregon State, then SMU, Syracuse, Pennsylvania, and Gonzaga. We have two conference champions racing in this race with 4 at-large qualifiers here. And it is conference champion SMU in that red hull in the middle. So far this weekend, we've seen them have quick starts. That seems to be part of their strategy. Get your bow out in front early, give yourself a little bit of confidence. Perhaps that's how they took the American Conference Championship this year. So what will we see from them as the race unfolds, as they lengthen off of their start from those high strokes to their base rhythm? Will they continue to extend their lead, or will it be Duke over on the far side in the white hats who take it away from them? That very well could be the case right now, as it seems that Duke is starting to lengthen out on the rest of the field and put their bow out in front.
Yeah, so it's Duke and SMU certainly at the front. And we have just a tremendous race. Really, all of these races that we're going to have, we only have 11 more, including this one, all morning long. They're all going to be super competitive because we've had multiple rounds of racing to group these boats together. And they get grouped together basically, depending upon their results. And typically we're going to see really competitive racing because they have gone through those rounds of racing to get here at similar speeds. Coming through 500, it continues to be Duke and SMU out in front of the field. And then it's really too close to call between Pennsylvania and Oregon State. And then right with the two of them is Syracuse as well. The only boat that's at all off the pace, and they still have an overlap with three others, is Gonzaga in lane 6. Looking back up front, it is a stroke-for-stroke race here at 600 meters, SMU and Duke.
And Oregon State and Pennsylvania are certainly going bow to bow here, trading the lead. And as they're doing that, it's bringing Syracuse up along with them, who appears to have potentially taken some sort of move, or perhaps the coxswain has made a call to encourage the athletes. We're right in this. Let's get a little bit more. Certainly Syracuse and Duke have seen each other throughout the season, and that could be confidence building for them as well, knowing that Duke is one of the two current leading boats. That could help pull Syracuse up just on knowing how they've performed against Duke over the season so far. Now, as Syracuse and Pennsylvania are two of the near boats on the finish tower side of that center hull out of SMU, as those two go back and forth pushing one another, that will put a little bit of pressure on our still current leaders, SMU, through the middle portions of this race. So it is three boats, Oregon State, Syracuse, and Pennsylvania, who are pushing one another. And by virtue of that secondary race unfolding, it is starting to put pressure on both Duke and SMU, who are our current leaders.
Yeah, SMU by maybe about 10 feet over Duke at the moment. They made like a little move there at around 650. They got a couple seats. And so SMU wants to get to the 1,000-meter mark ahead of everyone else, and it does appear that they will do that. But again, Duke right there with them. So those are your top two. And then looking back, it's basically a full boat length back to third place now, Syracuse. So of those three that we've been talking about, Pennsylvania, Syracuse, and Oregon State, Syracuse has decided that they want to get into the mix and start tracking down Duke and SMU, and that's exactly what Syracuse is doing. That said, both Penn and Oregon State are maintaining the same speed, and their bows are right on the stroke woman's hands in the Syracuse boat, and they're not going anywhere right now. In terms of they are not dropping off, they're just going with Syracuse. So this is actually shaping up to be a much closer race for all of the positions, with the exception of the fact that SMU has had a really strong last 500 meters.
And while the other crews, you could see Duke potentially took a little move around the 1,000. Certainly Syracuse made some sort of move, whether it was one stroke or just a little more pressure per every stroke. They certainly moved through the 1,000. Meanwhile, SMU has stayed pretty patient out where they are. The rowers themselves are aware of what's going on in the rest of the field, but they haven't let it bother them. They've stayed relatively on their rhythm, and only about now, as we cross into the remaining 700, 650 meters or so of this race, does it look as though SMU is going, okay, we need to do something here. We need to maybe sit back a little bit, bring up the rate a hair, push a little bit more, because Syracuse is putting the pressure on.
Yep, new second place is clearly Syracuse now. They have gotten past Duke, and they are trying to start challenging SMU. I'm watching the bow of the Syracuse boat, and it is starting to slowly track down SMU. The SMU rowers, as you said, Lindsay, they're in the driver's seat position. They can see their competitors, and they know they're going to ultimately know exactly what they have to do in terms of continued boat speed to try to stay out in front and win this C final. As we come into the last 500 meters, it's SMU, then it's Syracuse, Duke, and then it is dead level between Pennsylvania and Oregon State ahead of Gonzaga. We'll pass it to you, Adrian.
The ponies of SMU holding off a great charge here by Syracuse. The Orangemen, their coach Luke McGee has to be so proud of these athletes as they have continued to improve over the last few years, and here with a great showing in this Division I Fours C-level final. As they chase down SMU, every stroke they take, they're inching that bow just a little bit closer to the lead that SMU has held from the very beginning. SMU with that very quick start that worked for them because they've been out in front that whole time. But right now, Syracuse threatening just a little bit to cut into that lead. Just behind them, we've got Duke at the far side of the course, which is very difficult to race from. So they've got their closest competitor all the way across the other side of the race course. And as David and Lindsay have spoken about, very difficult for the coxswain to stay abreast of what exactly is happening out there on the race course. So very savvy coxswain in that Duke boat. She has moved into that third place position, trying to come up and maybe challenge the Syracuse boat for a little bit better placement. Just behind them, Oregon State coming out of that very tough Pac-12 conference. Oregon State looking super, super strong as they try to hold off Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, one of 4 Ivy League programs. Again, we've spoken about how their coach, Wesley Ng, just turning that program around. This is the first time for them at an NCAA championship as a team, and just doing an amazing job showing their strength. We are sure to see them back next year. But here we go, across the line, it will be the Mustangs with their bow first, followed by Syracuse very close behind them. And then here comes Duke, Oregon State, Pennsylvania, and then Gonzaga. Lane 3, Gonzaga. Lane 4, Northeastern. Lane 5, Rhode Island.
Okay, we're looking at 4 boats across that are going to contest the or 4th final for the Division I second eights. And the boots have come down. We're on the water with these 4 boats. We'll see what kind of strategies come into play in these first 250 meters. Who's going to stay high, try to get a lead? Who's going to settle right in? Everybody going for it here in the first 100 as we come through the red buoys here at Nathan Benderson Park and into the yellow. The red buoys exist for the first 100 meters if you're watching at home. And then they shift to yellow. And then each 250 meter mark all the way down the race course until you get into the last 250 meters, which are all red. There is a red buoy line. So they're about to come through 250. That is a red buoy line across the race course. And what a race we have here, Lindsay, to kick off our 8s racing this morning here on Championship Sunday. Everybody's still in the mix. The 2 boats maybe trying to go the most, Rhode Island and Gonzaga right now, but all these boats only separated by about a half a length total.
And it was Rhode Island and Gonzaga that took off the fastest straight off the start. And then as they've lengthened from there, it is Northeastern, your colonial champion, conference champion, that has said, you know what, it's okay, get out ahead, that's fine. We'll take back the lead that we want stroke for stroke once we lengthen out. And so now, although Gonzaga and Rhode Island are the 2 schools that asserted themselves very early on in their start sequence, it is that yellow bow in lane 4 out of Northeastern who is just ever so slightly nudging itself up as we get into the 500. So maybe that's part of their plan. Can you get in front nearing the 500, and then can you just very methodically chip away at the course from there? You know, when it comes to Championship Sunday, this is your final. This might be your last race of your season. If you're a senior, this might be your last race overall. So going into this, I can only imagine the emotion that a lot of these athletes are carrying with them, representing their teams, representing their respective schools, having some of the best races of their lives here this morning at Nathan Benderson Park.
When you line up in a rowing race, you line up to win. And right now we've got 3 boats that are separated by 2 total seats. In lanes 3 through 5, it's Gonzaga, Northeastern, Rhode Island. And it's essentially whoever's in the water. At times it's been Rhode Island with a slight lead. At times it's been Gonzaga with a slight lead. As they approach 750, all 3 of these boats are just kind of pacing each other right now. And I really am waiting to see who's going to take that big punch. And when's it going to happen?
750 right there. It was Gonzaga. As they felt the pressure by Northeastern, and they decided to take a little bit of a move. You can see the bow woman there in the Gonzaga crew with those white jerseys on. She took a little look to the right, saw the 750. Maybe there was a holler from a coach on shore, but she dialed her head right back in, because that has helped Gonzaga assert themselves a little bit farther by potentially a deck over the second 2 crews. Over on the far side, Jacksonville, though, has still not let them go. They are still in contact with Northeastern in that yellow hull, and as we approach the 1,000-meter mark, will they also be able to dial back into this race by virtue of the fact that our current speediest boat on the water is Gonzaga?
So Gonzaga has, it's basically the 2 women in the Gonzaga boat's hands are right where the bow balls are of essentially dead level Rhode Island and Northeastern. So you're right, at 750 was kind of where Gonzaga went, and they did get themselves a lead, and they're starting to actually move out at 1,000 as well. So Gonzaga has another move, it appears, at 1,000.
Certainly another move.
And they are starting to go, and they're starting to move away from Northeastern and Rhode Island. What do those 2 boats have in their deck of cards to try to get back into Gonzaga? So that, I talked about it. Who's going to make the first move? It clearly was Gonzaga. And then they made a second move, and right now they have almost a full length over these 2 boats that are stroke for stroke, Rhode Island and Northeastern.
And one of the keys here in this third 500 is stay clean. You have to stay efficient, because it's not as if these athletes have more energy to give at this point. Maybe there's more emotion to give at this point, but it's all about staying clean, even as you push yourself harder and harder. So breathe, stay clean. But coming through 750 meters to go, these athletes, everyone on the water right now, all 36 of them, they know that there are less than 700 meters to go in this race. And so they're going to sit up, open their eyes, listen to their coxswains, and go, okay, stay clean, 1 stroke at a time. And by virtue of doing that, Gonzaga has nearly broken contact with the rest of the boats in this field.
They have. It's women from Spokane. They had to go diagonally all the way across the country to get here, and they are showing that they want to finish their season with a win. They have open water now on still this amazing dead level race, almost dropping in at exactly the same times, Northeastern and Rhode Island. Rhode Island maybe with a couple of feet on Northeastern. It just keeps going back and forth between the two as we come through the red buoy line. 500 meters to go for Gonzaga. You can see they've got almost now a half a boat length of open water, and then it is Rhode Island and Northeastern that just continue to trade punches. And Jacksonville University staying tough. They still have an overlap with both of those boats, and they've had it all the way down the line. So does Jacksonville have something up their sleeve? We'll find out. We'll pass it to you, Adrian.
And indeed, Gonzaga here with a spectacular last race for this second 8. As Lindsay had said, you know, for some of these athletes, it's not only the last race of the season, it could be the last race of their careers. So you've got to lay down everything that you have to put out the best race possible, because at the end of the day, this is about team points. This is at team points at a national championship. It's about improving on previous year's finishes. It's about absolutely putting down the most perfect piece that you can. And here they are, Gonzaga, the Bulldogs, really showing what they have in the tank. And, you know, they're exhausted. They have come through these 3 days of racing, and every single day it's been faster and faster. And right now they are broken clean of Northeastern and Rhode Island. Jacksonville just left in their wake. So almost a full length of open water for Gonzaga. But look at Northeastern and Rhode Island, just bow ball to bow ball, trying to get into that second or third place position. Rhode Island looks like they might have just an edge over Northeastern, maybe just by a deck. Rhode Island, again, they're conference champions. They are just really bringing that stroke rate up as they move towards that finish line. It looks to me like they have about 1 seat over Northeastern. And now it's 2 seats. Rhode Island moving into that second place position just ahead of Northeastern. And now here is Jacksonville. So Gonzaga taking that race with a 6:56, Rhode Island 7:01, Northeastern 7:02, and Jacksonville 7:06. And we are just a few minutes away from the start of the third level final for our Division I second 8s. Gotta love to see the relaxation, the loosening up of the shoulders, the fist bumps, the yawns, everything getting ready for this last race of the championship. Let's go ahead and set lanes for you. In lane 1, Southern California. Lane 2, Syracuse. Lane 3, Rutgers. Lane 4, Duke. Lane 5, Oregon State. And lane 6, Boston University.
Okay, as we get ready for final three of the Division I second eights, going to be 6 boats across, beautiful flat water, continues here at Nathan Benderson Park. Lindsay, one of the things that we don't speak about quite as much, we're typically talking about the athletes that are in front of us actually rowing. What is it like to be a coach coming in? You know, maybe you're the coach particularly of a second varsity 8, and you've come here with the program. What type of nerves do the coaches have on race day, especially on Championship Sunday?
You know, your job as a coach is to help your athletes be calm. You teach them everything that you can to help them be as confident as possible, knowing that all of the preparation that these athletes have done up to this point is their confidence. So it's not today, right before the race, that we start talking about those things. It's all season long, where the training is the hard part and the race is the fun part. And so every time they go to shove off from the dock, I say, look, you have 45 minutes of a warm-up. It's practice. Go get faster. Can you get 1 foot faster in your warm-up so that by the time you get to the start, you are literally the fastest and most confident that you have ever been? And just before these boats, all 6 boats took off, we saw fist bumps, passed from stern to bow and back. We saw athletes shaking hands, some smiles, some big breaths, so that they could go and take off from the line for some of the best races of their lives. And then as a coach, you just breathe right with them. And for me, I move in the rhythm of the boat too. And as we cross into 250 meters, this is a very tight race, as to be expected. We have some automatic qualifying crews here, some conference champions. We have some athletes that are from at-large crews here in this race. But all the crews, however you got here, are going for it. And to be in a race this tight, from an athlete standpoint and from a coach standpoint, quite honestly, it might be a little bit more pressure on the coach than the athlete at this point, because you are so focused and so dialed into what you're doing. And so as we're nearing the first 500 meters of this race, it is Rutgers, who we've seen had a very interesting progression throughout this entire weekend of seeming to get a little faster from race to race, who has decided to assert themselves for the first quarter of this 2,000-meter race. That's Rutgers out in lane 3 in that red hull by about a deck, maybe an extra seat or so on top of a deck, as our current leaders.
Yep, Syracuse went with Rutgers, but they have dropped back not a lot. Syracuse clearly still in second place. But look at this field. I mean, this is the NCAA championships. These boats are from all over the nation. You've got Southern California, you've got Syracuse, New York, you've got Rutgers in New Jersey, you have Duke from North Carolina, you have Oregon State from Oregon, you have Boston University from Boston, Massachusetts, and they are all still in this race at 650. These are the races that you're going to remember, and particularly if it's your last college race, which it is for a fair amount of these athletes. This one's going to go down as maybe the one that you always remember. And right now it is Rutgers. They're trying to continue to assert themselves. They're in lane 3 in that red boat at 750. They have a half a length on the field. The boat that started to track down Syracuse, who was really sitting in second place from early on, is the boat in lane 4, which is a boat from Duke. And Duke is slightly ahead of the rest of the field relative, going with Syracuse. So you've got Syracuse and Duke. They're obviously no strangers to one another, but everybody right now is trailing Rutgers.
And it is Rutgers right around 750 meters. They decided to take a little bit more length on the rest of the field, even as both Duke and Syracuse are battling one another to take back from their lead. And Duke, it may not be the lead necessarily that Rutgers has on them that's encouraging them, but the pressure that Oregon State in that white hull and black and orange that is in the lane right next to them, putting pressure on Duke, that's also encouraging them to get up into that lead that Rutgers has had. Now, as we cross the 1,000 and get into this third 500, all weekend so far, we have seen Rutgers row with a ton of emotion and a slightly higher rate, and they've been able to maintain that down the course. The question is, as these fields have gotten more and more packed, more and more tight, are they able to stay out in front the way that they are, even though some of the crews behind them are a little bit lower, a little bit more methodical at this point? But again, you get here, you rely on what you've practiced every single day. You stick to your plan and don't worry about what other people are doing. What works for you is what works for you, especially when you stay together, dialed in as a unit.
Here comes Oregon State. Oregon State has gotten past Syracuse. Syracuse maintaining about a deck on Southern California out there, but it's Duke sitting in second place with Oregon State really pressing in the adjacent lane. At 12:50, it is Rutgers with a full length on the field and continuing to move away at 39 strokes a minute. They are really going after it. They're emptying the tanks. This is the last race of the season, and it is working for them. This beautiful flat water, they are moving away from the field. Here's Duke trying to hold on to second place just ahead of Oregon State, and Oregon State is making it a just nail-biter race here. They are making it very uncomfortable for Duke. Duke had a nice, solid second place for a while, and now it's dead level between the two. They're in adjacent lanes 4 and 5. Then you've got Syracuse that just continues to maintain about a deck advantage over Southern California. So you've got a race going on in those two adjacent lanes 1 and 2. As we pass it to you, Adrian, it is Rutgers. That's what we know. And then you've just got a tremendous race behind them. Oregon State, Duke, Syracuse, Southern California, and Boston University.
And Rutgers just having an amazing race here as they have pulled free and clear from the rest of the field. They are pushing themselves so hard, but behind them, it is almost dead level between 4 crews. I'm looking at Southern California, Syracuse, Duke, Oregon State, just dead even straight across. Maybe a slight advantage going to Duke, but just barely because Oregon State has really turned it on. Now the advantage is going to go to them for that second place position. I'm looking at Oregon State right now with about a 1-seat advantage over Duke. Behind Duke, it's going to be Syracuse and then Southern California level. In the 6th place position, it will be Boston University, but look at these crews. This is just a parade coming down towards us. But it is Rutgers. They are the leader here with a full boat length of open water. Look at the Beavs from Oregon State, though. They are pushing in these final 200 meters to see if they can take a little bit of that lead away from Rutgers. Overtaking Duke for that 2nd place position. Syracuse right there. Southern California. Boston University finishing in 6th, but it will be the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. Now just half a boat length of open water over the field. So tight here as we come into these final strokes. Oregon State with just a beautiful sprint to close the gap between themselves and Rutgers. And here come the Beavers. Duke now, Syracuse, and Southern California. All right, and as we wrap up the 3rd and 4th level finals for the second 8s, we will move over to our first 8s. This will be the 4th level final for our Division I first 8s. 4 boats are going to be on the course. In lane 2, Rhode Island. Lane 3, Boston University. Lane 4, Jacksonville. And lane 5, Northeastern.
For those of you who have never sat at the start of a race before, here we are at the start of this race. One of the biggest races of the season so far for each of these athletes, the biggest race of the season so far for each of these athletes. And one of the things that is just so incredible, you're sitting up here, they give you 3-minute warning. They tell you when the start system is raising. Then they give you a 2-minute warning. All the while, you have to manage your emotions, your nerves, all of your energy. And what is it that helps is breathing. More than any other sport, rowing teaches you to use your breath to manage your emotions, your nerves, your heart rate, so that you can guide all of that energy in the right direction. And that is certainly a huge lesson that I've been able to take from this sport into life in general. When the stress raises, when the stakes go up, take a huge breath to relax. And then as soon as that start goes off, just as it has just now in this race, you breathe a little bit faster because the stroke rate is going up, but nonetheless, you are using your breath to help carry you down the course.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard when that boot comes down and you hear all the noise that's going on in these boats, probably to have the same breath that you did right before you started. But that is a point well taken. And here we go early on. A just shot out like a cannon was Boston University in lane 3. They've already settled, it appears, or lengthened out at least as they come through 250. And they have a half a length on the rest of the field. The other 3 boats all very bunched up and very close to one another, a couple feet separating each of them. Those are Northeastern, Jacksonville University, and Rhode Island. So those are your 4 boats here in this D or 4th final of the Division I First Eights. And you line up to race. Boston University has made the choice that they were going to put a little bit of emphasis on that start, and it's gotten them quite a tremendous lead here at 400 meters.
Just barely over about a half a length lead so far for Boston University over there in lane 3 in that black hull, similarly colored in terms of unisuit would be on the near side with Northeastern, but they are in that yellow hull, and they are the crew that has gone with Boston the most so far in this first 500 meters. Boston's start sequence, those very early first 5 high and then another 10 or 15 strokes high, that got them an initial majority of the half a length that they had off of the start. But as they continue to lengthen into this second 500, it does seem that they are ever so slightly taking a little bit more of a lead on our current second place, Northeastern. And with Northeastern, right next to them is Jacksonville, and they are creeping up into Northeastern by putting pressure on Northeastern. That we will see if that will put a little bit of pressure on Boston as we get closer into the 1,250 meters to go of this race.
So the top 2 boats here are the boat from Boston University and the boat from Northeastern. So 2 boats that row on the Charles River. Boathouses, if you've been to the head of the Charles, which is typically how people get there if they haven't actually rowed in Boston or gone to one of the colleges, fairly far from one another on the Charles River. However, these are absolutely rivals. These are in-city rivals. And right now it's Boston University. They continue to maintain actually a little bit of open water, maybe a seat of open water, back to second place Northeastern. But we'll see what Northeastern has up their sleeve, because they are slightly understroking Boston University. So will that come into play as we approach the halfway point? But right now, it's the Terriers, and they are really way out in front and continue to now move away. As I'm watching the stern of their boat relative to the bow ball of the Northeastern boat, Boston University is really putting everything they have into it on this flat water at Nathan Benderson Park.
It's absolutely gorgeous, almost glass mirror-like as we cross into the third 500. The first half of the race is now done. It's okay, it's time to breathe even more. That breath that helped you stay composed with your nerves to help them unify. 9 people in each boat unifying through their push, through their breath, through the way that they're letting those wheels roll. And so if you breathe again as you cross into that 1,000, it gives your mind a little moment to breathe too, and it lets you relax a little bit and go, okay, I have a little bit more. And Boston University, they are just staying right, very rhythmic. If you were to watch a metronome that you would use for music, for the piano, it's just stayed pretty consistent the whole way down the course. It seems as though maybe they're taking a little bit of a pressure move, but even though they're taking a pressure move, It has not changed the way that they're rowing relative to one another. They are certainly very together here, very clean, staying very methodical as we approach 600 meters or so to go in this race.
So it's Boston University with a clinical dominant row so far as they come through 1350. They approach those last 500 meters of their 2022 NCAA championships. And they continue to have about a half a length of open water. The boat that's going with them is Northeastern. Northeastern has quite the distance to try to track down Boston University at this point, but Northeastern has maintained a good steady amount of rhythm and speed because they have pulled away, and they have open water, does Northeastern, on the other two boats in the field that are essentially dead level. You're going to see them as they come through 500 meters to go. On the far side, it is Rhode Island
wants a piece of it.
Yeah, and Rhode Island has just slightly gotten ahead of Jacksonville University, but a really good battle going on between those two. We'll pass it off to you, Adrian, at the finish line, fairly spaced out. Boston University really from the first stroke decided that they were going to lay down the gauntlet.
And it is in that third 500 that we really find the focus and the fitness become evident. And right now, Rhode Island taking advantage of that. Jacksonville had a very, very high stroke rate through the body of this piece, maybe a little bit more relaxation in the Rhode Island boat, and that worked to their advantage as they have jumped out to lead Jacksonville in that third place position. But it is all about Boston as they have moved through this piece. They jumped out to an early lead and just have not relinquished it since. What I am seeing is a lot of relaxation coming from their boat. Lindsay talked about kind of a metronome-like rhythm, and that's exactly what we're seeing. 36 strokes a minute all the way down the race course. As we come into these final strokes, 200 meters left. They're going to wind it up a little bit higher stroke rating, but very, very confident they want to end this season with the best ranking that they can, and definitely improvement over years past. Boston just looking clean, solid, and swift as they come to the line, ahead of their crosstown rivals Northeastern. Northeastern bow to stern over now Rhode Island. Rhode Island with a bit of open water over Jacksonville. All of these crews finishing this season looking for the highest ranking that they can. And here comes Boston at the line. Good amount of open water back. It will be Northeastern. The Huskies bow to stern over the Rams of Rhode Island, and now the Dolphins of Jacksonville. Okay, and we'll go ahead and set the stage here for our next race, which is the third level final for our Division I first eights. 6 crews on the water in lane 1, Gonzaga. Lane 2, Duke. Lane 3, Oregon State. Lane 4, Rutgers. Lane 5, Syracuse. Lane 6, Southern California.
All right, the boot's going to come down momentarily, and we're going to be on the race course with 6 boats across. Final 3 of the Division I first 8s. Here they come. Who's going to try to get that lead early, if anyone? Good, clean starts, really to be expected at this level. These are the first 8s for each of these programs. And what a start we have. I am looking straight across the field, and everyone is just right in line. I'm looking at where the coxswains are sitting, and it's essentially, if your boat's in the water, that's the only time that you may be a few inches ahead. Maybe Syracuse starting to go to the lead. They're the only boat that has poked out at this point at 200 meters, Lindsay.
They are. They got off the line pretty quickly, took about a deck pretty instantly relative to the rest of the field, but then sat there, and certainly all 6 of these boats have really stayed quite together from that point forward. I would say lane 4, Rutgers in that red hull, is the one hull that was a little bit behind off of those first few strokes, but really we've talked about that. The first few strokes are just there to get you up and moving, and then after that what really matters is basically every single other stroke after those first 15. And so now that these crews are lengthening out as we're getting into 350, 400 meters down, a few strokes from crossing into the first 500 of this race, you'll see them come together a little bit more. You'll see the fact that they are able to breathe a little bit better. That's part of what your stroke rate really is. It's not just about how many times can your blades touch the water. It's how much time are you actually giving yourself to breathe between strokes. Are you letting the boat breathe between strokes? The whole point is you do some work, you breathe, and then you let the boat do some work. So as these crews, all 6 of them still very much in contact, just trading who our leaders are from stroke to stroke. Every 10 strokes or so, it seems to change. And initially, a moment ago when we said Syracuse was out in front and then Rutgers was right there too, Oregon State is also the other crew that was right there the whole time. And so those 3 crews, the 3 crews toward those center lanes, are the 3 crews that coming into this race would be expected to be out in front and start to create that leader chevron pattern there. So for the next 1,250 meters of this race, will they continue to trade, or will someone decide that they're going to take a move and push themselves out in front, try to plant little seeds of doubt in everyone else in this very, very tight 3rd level final of Division I 8s?
750 meters, and I'm laughing because it's just so competitive. At 500 meters, it looked to my eye like Oregon State took a move, but that move only got them like a seat on the rest of the field, and everybody is starting to come back into the mix here. I'm also really seeing a charge from Duke. Duke up there, you can't, it's relatively hard to see their bow from where we are sitting, but they have now brought it to level with Rutgers, and these 2 boats are 5 feet behind Oregon State. So you've got 5 feet separating the top 3 right now in lanes 2 through 4. It's Duke, Oregon State, who's in the lead, and Rutgers. And then looking right in front of us here, first of all 6 boats are still connected at 1,000 meters. So this is as good as it gets. This is the NCAA championships at its finest. Right now, at 1,000 meters, I'm going to give it to the Beavers by about 4 feet over Rutgers. Rutgers by about 4 feet over the boat from Duke at 1,000 meters, as Southern California right in front of us here in lane 6 starts to make a charge.
Southern California has been very slowly taking their move. Being out here in lane 6, the lane closest to the finish tower, those center crews might not be able to see them as well and know what's going on. There are a lot of bodies between the coxswains and these outside boats. So will, by virtue of the fact that they are in an outside lane, the lane, again, closest to the finish tower side, will that kind of hide them a little bit and allow them to sneak into our leaders? Current leader still Oregon State by a few more feet over Rutgers, who is still hanging there, and Duke still hanging there as well, looking to get back up into the lead that Rutgers has over them. Very tight race between Southern California now and Duke. The question is, who will decide in this the middle portion of this 3rd 500, who's going to be solidly in 3rd? It is going to be an intense last 500.
I don't want to not mention the fact Syracuse is only a couple of feet behind Southern California, and Syracuse has a connection with all of the boats that we have been mentioning that are up front. As they come through, this is just a boat race. This is a boat race. And what a race we have as they approach the last 500 meters, 600 meters to the finish line. It's the Beavers by 1 seat. We're talking about 4 feet over Rutgers. Rutgers now has extended their second place over Duke by a little bit as Rutgers is actually making a move to try to break it to even with 500 meters left with Oregon State. I almost can't talk fast enough. As Duke is in the mix, they're sitting in third place. Southern California just slightly ahead of Syracuse, and Gonzaga is still connected with everybody except for Rutgers and the boat from Oregon State. So we're going to pass it off to you, Adrian. What a race we've got going on here in Final 3 of the Division I First Eights.
Absolutely. And just as you said that this is what it is all about, is that intensity all the way down the race course. There is no one that has broken free from the pack. So up front, Rutgers and Oregon State just going at each other. And as you handed it off to me, Rutgers has now taken the lead over Oregon State. Rutgers winding it up here. They really took a jump in that 500 meter to go line. And as they come into the red buoys, we're going to see every stroke they take digging in. That coxswain just driving her crew. She's not only the coach and the driver in the boat, she is inside their heads. What can we do in this final 200 meters of our national championship? Rutgers now sitting with a 3-seat advantage over Oregon State. Duke right there. With 500 meters to go, there was less than a second separating out Oregon State and Rutgers, but now Rutgers taking the upper hand in these final strokes. Coming to the line, though, look at Southern California. Could Southern California take over that third place position from Duke? Syracuse right there with them. Gonzaga just a little bit off the back, but as we race to the line, Southern California is really moving here. Take a look at Duke, take a look at Southern California, all the way to the line. This is going to come down to the wire. Right now, Southern California with the advantage for that third place spot, but it will be Rutgers followed by Oregon State, Southern California, Duke, Syracuse, and now Gonzaga. All right, here we go. The Division I fours. This will be final number 2, or the petite level final. We've got 6 boats on the course. In lane 1, Virginia. Lane 2, California. Lane 3, Michigan. Lane 4, Yale. Lane 5, Rutgers. Lane 6, Southern California.
Here we come, 6 boats across on the race course. Final 2, contesting places 7 through 12 in the nation in the NCAA Division I Women's Fours. Good clean start again, really not seeing any white water, which is to be expected at this level of rowing and these beautiful flat conditions as they come through 100 meters. Trying to push their nose out in front early is Virginia, all the way up there in lane 1. They do have about a deck on the field, so clearly that was, they have practiced the start. They put a little bit of an emphasis on getting out. Are they going to be able to maintain it? They have the early lead here.
The thing about jumping out on the lead like that, it gives you that adrenaline boost, and then you have to stay confident in what you're doing. When you go to make that lengthen shift, you have to listen to the coxswain so that it keeps you on a solid rhythm rather than just thriving and surviving on your instincts, your adrenaline at the beginning. Be able to control that energy and use it to your advantage by virtue of getting out ahead, maybe surprising a couple of the other boats that are on your inside, seeing if you can get them off of their game a little bit, and then continue to lengthen out from there as you lengthen throughout this race. Again, the important thing about lengthening off of your start is to stay together. You must stay uniform to be maximally effective here. And as all of these boats are lengthening out, as we approach this first 500 meter gone, everyone, as to be expected, is still in contact. The only crew starting to dip back a little bit is Rutgers, but just inside them on the inside near shore is Southern California. They are right there moving along with lanes 2 and 3, California and Michigan. Yale currently sitting in second place in lane 4 in that yellow hull, and it is still Virginia maintaining about a deck lead over the rest of the field on that far side lane, the lane closest to the coach's bike path.
So it's Virginia. They continue to have about a half a length advantage. Fairly high stroke rating, but it seems like that is just their pace. The rowing looks pretty well settled and together here as they come into this second 500 meters. It is Yale, as you said, with a slight advantage over California. California sitting in third place, only about, I would say, 5 feet behind Yale as we come through 700 meters. And going with them in the middle of those two is Michigan. The Wolverines are staying right there within striking distance in these fours. I've talked about it before. The change in boat speed, if you have something up your sleeve, can really be tremendous, and it can be more so evident in these fours. There's a lot of race left. 800 meters in, it's still a half a length advantage for Virginia.
And it does look like, as we are approaching this, chipping away at the first half of this race, that California has decided to either come together a little bit more or take an intentional move, whether it's a focus or a pressure 10, to see if they can put some even more pressure on not only Virginia but also Yale. And as California does that, it gives them a little bit more command over Michigan, who is still very closely connected with them. They can use the crew of Michigan sitting slightly behind them and the crew of Virginia sitting slightly in front of them to motivate them forward. And as they do that, that allows them to chip away at Yale's lead on them, Yale being in the yellow boat, Yale's lead on California, California in the yellow shirts. That allows California to chip away at the lead that Yale has. Yale,
I'm watching the Yale boat. They're remaining very patient in terms of what I'm watching from the rowers. And so is that going to come into play? Typically it would in this third 500. If they can continue to just remain steady, they may start chipping away at Virginia. Virginia rowing at a slightly higher stroke rate, but still Virginia with about 3/4 of a length on Yale, and right behind Yale continues to be California, maybe 5 feet, 7 feet behind Yale. Those are your top three, and then it is too close to call. It is Michigan, it is Rutgers, and it is Southern California that are absolutely stroke for stroke. Just so that you understand exactly where those boats stand, they are about a half a length off of Cal. So you've got 5 boats connected. It's only those 3 that I just mentioned, Michigan, Rutgers, and Southern California, that are not connected with first place Virginia. Coming through 1250, Virginia has extended just a little bit, and here comes California.
And as California puts pressure on Virginia, Virginia is inching out ever so slightly on the rest of the field, but we do still have about 800 meters left to go in this race. So the question is, who's going to stay clean? Still amazing, beautiful, flat, calm conditions here. Absolutely what you want to see at your national championship race, especially in a 4, because conditions would impact a 4 more than it would impact an 8 simply by virtue of the fact that the boat is smaller and there's less of it, in which case conditions would knock it around. But gosh, that is certainly not the case here. And as the emotion comes up, as the energy comes up, as these horses smell the barn, they smell the finish line, who is going to have time to rev it up? Yale has stayed patient this whole time. They certainly have space to grow. California has stayed patient. Michigan, everyone on the field has stayed patient this whole time. Who is going to sit up, sit back, let the blades drop in and take off? And it is Virginia that seems to be taking the first move to get themselves toward that finish line the fastest.
Before we pass it off to you, Rutgers really making a move to pull away from Southern California and Michigan. Rutgers really put it on there, 100 meters from 500 to go, so it's 600 meters. I'm going to pass it off to you, Adrian. This is quite a race. It is Virginia trying to hang on. They're trying to go start to finish and win this final 2 of the Division I 4s.
Points on the line.
Just phenomenal here. As we watch this race progress, we're looking at some crews who, coming out of the heats, coming out of the semifinals, literally just seconds separating their finish times. So it is no surprise right now that this race is this competitive. There is still overlap amongst all boats. There is no one with an open water lead. Just amazing as we come into the final 250 meters that it is anyone's game right now. Virginia still owning that top spot. California moving into that second place position. They've got speed up their sleeves, so we're going to see what they can do here in these final 200 meters. California in second. Right now, too close to call between Yale and Rutgers for that third place spot. I can't even tell the difference. It's bow ball to bow ball between Rutgers and Yale. Michigan just behind them by about a seat, but Southern California there as well. This is a race to watch. This is how exciting it's going to get, and even the next race is going to be just bananas. Right now, Virginia still barely holding on to the lead as the Golden Bears charge towards the finish line. They are in that second place position, but polling even with Virginia as we come closer to the finish line. Virginia just barely holding on, but California surging towards the finish line. California will nip Virginia at the line, and then Rutgers in third, Yale in fourth, Michigan fifth, and now Southern California in sixth. The Golden Bears barely taking that top spot by 0.3 of a second over Virginia. All right, and we are just minutes away from crowning our first national champion. We're looking at the first final. This is the grand final for the Division I 4s. 6 boats on the course. In lane 1, Brown. Lane 2, Princeton. Lane 3, Washington. Lane 4, Stanford. Lane 5, Texas. Lane 6, Ohio State.
We're sitting ready here at the start of the Division I Fours Grand Final. Our first national championship title on the line here in this race. This is for places 1 through 6, and major team points up for grabs here. A maximum of 22 points available here in the 4 toward that team title. And this, out of all 3 grand finals that we will see happen this morning, is the only grand final where the 6 crews that came into this entire regatta ranked top 6 are here in this race. So this is an accurately ranked race. The question is, will it fall as they were ranked, or will it fall as these teams have progressed over the course of this weekend so far? And as we have had a clean start, we are well out of those red first 100-meter buoys. These boats are well underway, and it is in lane 3, Washington, and in lane 5, Texas. The 2 crews, Washington in the yellow hull, Texas in the white hull. The 2 crews who have already started to assert themselves just a hair, with lane 4, Stanford, beginning to surge as well as they lengthen out into their base rhythms. The only crew slightly off the pace at about 300 or 400 meters in is Brown in the pink hats on the far shore on the opposite side from the finish tower. But still, a lot of race left to be rode. All crews well connected, all dialed into their lanes, about to create some more speed, I can imagine, David.
Yeah, you've got your defending national champions in this boat class, Washington, and they got to the lead, but here comes Texas now. Texas is nice and dead level at 450 meters now with Washington for the first time. Going with those 2 boats and starting to really poke into the picture here is Princeton. Princeton is sitting in 3rd place, slightly ahead of essentially dead level Ohio State and Stanford as we come through 500 meters. These team titles often come down to the results in the 4. The only bobble that the Texas team has had all weekend long is that they lost to Washington in the semifinals of this event. It's the only race that Texas has lost all year, was that semifinal. And right now Texas has asserted themselves, and they have put themselves just slightly ahead of now dead level. Here is Princeton, dead level with the Huskies of Washington. This is tremendous. I'm watching these bows. They're not kind of shooting back and forth. They are just nice and level through the water, yes, which tells me that these crews are extremely proficient with their rowing. It's Texas right now as we approach 750, who's starting to try to move away. But it's literally only a couple of feet. Maybe Princeton now has pushed ahead of Washington.
And what you're saying about the bows just surging forward the entire time. Rowing is at first a game of how much do I make sure I don't take away speed, and then break even, and then just only add speed. And so now that we're into the grand final of this 4, it is clear that these leaders, the leaders in the varsity 4 of the Division I, are some of the best athletes in the country, and for that reason their bows are really only surging forward. Now all of these crews do have slightly different styles, slightly different approaches. Princeton typically a little bit higher. That is their bread and butter. It absolutely works for them, and so even though they may strike the water a little bit faster than some of the other crews, it works for them, and it has allowed them to take about a deck lead. And certainly Washington wants to be in that lane right next to Princeton as they cross into this 1,000, because Washington's sort of a dark horse, sneaking past Texas earlier on this weekend. Since Texas has come into the regatta ranked number 1, Washington ranked number 5, and Princeton ranked number 3. But right now, Princeton's ranked number 1 as we get well into this 3rd 500.
1,100 meters into this 2,000-meter race course, national championship on the line in the women's 4. It's Princeton by a deck over dead level Washington and Texas. At 4th place right now are the Buckeyes right here in lane 6 in front of us. Maybe surprisingly, 5th place right now is Stanford in lane 4. Stanford is connected with the stern of the Washington boat, who's sitting in 2nd place now, who has moved ahead of Texas. But it looks so controlled to my eye in that Princeton boat. I think it's going to be difficult for anyone to track them down. As we get into the last 750, they kind of just continue to extend their lead, and it looks easy. I'm watching these women. I know it's not easy, but it looks easy. As they come through 1250, it's Princeton by half a length over Washington, Washington by a deck over Texas.
And just back of them, it is Stanford that came into this regatta ranked number 2 that is currently sitting in what appears to be 5th place. So keep an eye on them for a late surge, but it continues to be Princeton just taking that lead. And now Washington has stopped the move that Princeton has made. They have decided to answer that call, and they're starting to eat back into that lead, literally 1 inch per stroke. And Princeton knows because they are right there. They can smell that. They can smell Washington putting on the pressure, and they do not want to give up the lead that they took through the middle portion of this race. So it's going to come down to a sprint. Does Princeton have even more gears, even though they're already revved up? Will Washington decide to open their eyes and pour their intent, their emotion to steal away the highest number of points available in this event for their team to begin to be the first step toward a national title, not only in this boat class, but as a team?
National championship on the line as we pass it to you, Adrian. It's Haley Mead stroking Princeton to the lead at 500 meters to go, ahead of Washington, Texas, Ohio State, Stanford, and Brown in that order.
And that's right. That stroke seat of the Princeton boat. She is a racer coming from Redwood Shores out in California. She has taken this boat and just every stroke inching it further away from Washington. So now at about the halfway point, less than a second separating first through third. Now almost 2 seconds between Princeton and Washington, but it is not over till it's over. Washington is not going to relinquish that crown easily. They're still in that second place position with Texas right there. Texas and Washington almost dead even. Don't forget about the Buckeyes closest to shore. They are also in the mix. Stanford falling a little bit back off of the pace, but not much. And then Brown in that 6th place position. As we come to the line, Princeton, the Tigers just upending this regatta, taking this win right now, almost looking for open water as we come towards the finish line. But look at Texas. Look at Texas in that lane 5 closest to shore. They are turning on the afterburners here, overtaking Washington for the 2nd place spot. Princeton still barely holding on to that lead. Look at the stroke seat for that Princeton boat. They've got to be upwards of 42 strokes a minute here as we come into the final strokes. It is going to be tight for that 2nd spot because look at the Buckeyes. Princeton just barely holding on to this lead. Ohio surging into that 2nd place position. Texas in 3rd, Stanford in 4th, Washington in 5th, Brown in 6th. What a race. All right, and if my heart rate can calm down, I can read the lane assignments for you. We're gonna move back over to the petite final. This would be the 2nd 8 for our Division I boats. In lane 1, Pennsylvania. Lane 2, Southern Methodist. Lane 3, Brown. Lane 5, Ohio State. Oops. Lane 5, California. Ohio State's lane 4. Lane 6, Michigan.
Brown rose high.
Seeing all of these 6 boats sitting at attention and ready, we're going to be on the race course momentarily with final 2 of the Division I second 8s. Only 4 races left of our 2022 NCAA Rowing Championships here from beautiful Nathan Benderson Park in Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida. And these last 4 races all should be just as outstanding as we have seen all morning long. The progression, putting these similarly fast boats into, in this case, the second final, and every single place mattering for the team championship standings. Here we go, boots down, 6 boats on the race course coming at you. A lot of commotion, a lot of sound down here at the start line when 6 boats, 6 8s particularly, come off the line. And early on, Brown using that stroke rating to get out to the lead.
They sure are, being comfortable rowing at a slightly higher rate, maybe more comfortable at a higher rate than a lot of these crews. It allows them to get off the line very quickly. So if your strength to weight ratio is quite high, that puts less load in the boat. And if you are used to using a higher rate, it's going to help you get that boat up to speed. So as they lengthen out, will they lengthen out is a question. As the rest of these crews lengthen out into their more bread and butter, what is the strength of each of these crews? So some teams you'll notice have trends where they might be a little faster off the line, some might be a little slower off the line and then make up for it in the middle of the race. All of it, no matter what, reflects the maturity that you have to stick to your own race plan. And what is maturity in rowing? But confidence. And where does confidence come from? But many meters rowed together. All those meters aren't necessarily for the aerobic benefit of this sport. It's so that you can solidify it, so that you can gel as a team, so that you can build confidence in what you're doing to move your hull, so that by the time you get here to this NCAA championship, you are able to go down the course confidently and continue to breathe to see just how close to that finish line you can either cross it first or as close to first as you possibly can. So Brown still our current leaders as we approach 500 meters, but it is Pennsylvania in the white boat on the very far shore away from the finish tower that seems to be surging the most, even though California seems to be our current second place.
Yeah, it's really too close to call between California and Penn. It's sort of whoever's in the water, but it is a lead for Brown. It was about a deck at 500 meters. It may be slightly more at the moment, but you've got this Pennsylvania boat all the way up there in lane 1 that obviously knows Brown very well, being that they are both in the Ivy League Conference. And then you've got California here in lane 5, plenty of experience and plenty of speed. And where are they going to sort of try to assert themselves is something that may play out. Now, going with California is Ohio State in lane 4. And Ohio State is really trying to match the speed of California because those 2 boats together at their speed currently are really closing the gap on Pennsylvania and not quite closing the gap on Brown. So it's a Brown 3-woman's hands that are basically touching the bow tips of both California and Pennsylvania. So that's the Brown lead right now. It's not quite a half a length. It's maybe Pennsylvania by a couple of feet over California.
Sure is. And Brown, as these other boats are vying for that current second place, Brown does extend their lead just a hair from what they had early on in this race. They might even be now out to a little past a half a length, maybe into 5 seats or so. But as they do that, it's bringing the whole field. Only SMU and Michigan starting to fall off the pace just a little bit. But when I say off the pace, I mean, we're talking a couple of seconds. You know, but boat length is about 3 seconds of time over 2,000 meters. So that's a very tight race to have everyone full in contact, less than 2 or 3 seconds really separating everyone at this point in time. And the longer that I speak, the more inches Brown continues to take, and the more inches Ohio State starts to take on California.
Brown, I've had him at 38 strokes a minute the whole way, and it is just continues to work for them. The blades are down into the water proficiently, and they are just remaining out in front. They have 3/4 of a boat length now, and the big mover in the last 500 meters or so has been Ohio State. The Buckeyes now have inched their way slowly but surely into a second place position just ahead of California. Those 2 boats have gotten past Pennsylvania, who's sitting in 4th place. SMU in 5th place still has connection with all boats in front of them except for Brown. As we come through 1250, it's still 3/4 of a length for Brown, but I'm watching this Ohio State boat, Lindsay, because Ohio State is the one that is moving the fastest of all of these boats.
And at this point in the race, it was, as we just saw in that 4, Ohio State poured it on at the end to come where they were in the third 500 to nip out some crews that had been previous leaders. So does Ohio State, as we approach the last 500 meters, they've been biding their time, staying mature, staying confident. You could just see one of the bow women there peek over. Yep, she peeked again to take a look. Shoot, we're eating into Brown. We are walking on them. And even though they are still down, that walk is what builds your confidence. So can you know you have less than 2 minutes left to go in this race. What do you have? Do you have another gear? And can you take away that lead from Brown? But California's still in it, Penn's still in it, SMU clawing their way back up into it. 500 meters, a very exciting one left to be heard here, Adrian.
And Brown, hot off of the start, they decided to take the lead. They started out strong. They have stayed strong. They have a little bit of the upper hand in terms of the rankings over both Pennsylvania and California, but California upending that a little bit by being in that third place position. But Ohio State, as we saw in the previous race, they have amazing closing speed. So keep your eye on lane 4 as they come towards the finish. Can Brown continue to hold them off? Because I'm watching Ohio State as they wind it up, just about to hit those red buoys. What do they have up their sleeve in terms of that sprint? I think they've got more. Just behind them, the Golden Bears of California, just off of the stern deck of the Ohio State boat. It's very close, though, right now between SMU and Michigan, as well as Pennsylvania. Very tight here between Pennsylvania and SMU. They're right next to each other, so they're stroke for stroke as we come into these final strokes here. 100 meters to go, and Ohio State closing in on Brown. Ohio State continuing to move. Brown just going crazy here with that high stroke rate. We know that that is their signature through the body of the piece. They've got to be upwards of about 43 strokes a minute. As we come into the final strokes, they will be able to hold off Ohio State, but what a sprint from the Buckeyes. They now have open water over the rest of the field, and this is interesting as we come to the line. California just barely moving themselves ahead of both SMU, Pennsylvania, almost dead even with each other. Michigan now crossing, so Brown crossing in first, about a second in front of Ohio State. California right there. And then between Pennsylvania and SMU, it was SMU with the 4th place spot, 1/100th of a second ahead of Pennsylvania. And then finally, Michigan. All right, and we're just minutes away from the grand final for the Division I, second 8. In lane 1, Princeton. Lane 2, Yale. Lane 3, Texas. Lane 4, Stanford. Lane 5, Washington. Lane 6, Virginia.
And we're off in the Division I, 2nd to 8th grand final. Top places 1 through 6 on the line here. A maximum of 44 points available in this second Varsity 8 event toward the overall team. But first, the question is who is going to take this individual boat class title here, the opportunity to call themselves 2022 NCAA champions in the D1 2V event. And off the line, there are about 4 boats that are vying for the present lead as we're still in our start sequences. You can see that the stroke rates, the time between strokes, is a little bit less, so the stroke rates are higher at this point in the race. And our current leaders that are off the line through the first 260 or so meters of this race is now Washington at this point, with Princeton, both Princeton and Yale on the far side in lanes 1 and lane 2, Washington in lane 5 in that lead yellow hull. Those are your 3 current leaders. And even though I say that right now, there is very, very little that separates them, and Stanford is right there with them. So 4 boats out in the lead right now. Washington currently most in the lead, but only by a couple of feet, with Yale appearing to be moving the quickest after Washington.
Another boat race we have on our hands. This is just, I mean, if I can't get adrenaline watching this, then there's something wrong with me. Right now, Yale has moved in and through 500 meters, has 1 foot on Washington. Washington, you're defending national champions in the boat class. Stanford, you're defending silver medalists. Texas, you're defending bronze medalists. They are all in adjacent lanes. Of those 3, Texas is the one that's not in the mix right now. They're sitting in 5th place at 600 meters. Right now it is Yale. Yale has even more than a deck. They've got about 15 feet right now on Washington. I'm watching the Washington bow and the Stanford bow because they're right in front of me. Stanford started to surge there. Washington kind of hit back. It is clearly Washington still in 2nd place. And you can't forget that bow up there from Princeton in lane 1, because Princeton is really dead level with Stanford at this point. So those 4 are the 4 that are out. Texas is connected with those 4, but is at least a half a length off the pace as we come through 750.
And as we pass this 750, Texas, even though they are currently off the pace, we've seen the maturity, the confidence out of those Texas crews to bide their time, be okay with being a little bit down. They don't sell the farm early, so to speak, but they do get about 750 in and stop any walk that any other crew has, which they've done. They've stopped the walk. Texas does come into this race ranked number 1 in this particular boat. Texas came into this entire regatta ranked number 1 in all boat classes. But the question is, they stay methodical, they stay their course. Will they step it up as we cross into the third 500 here shortly? But right now, Yale is the one laying down the gauntlet, to use your term there, David. You're laying down the gauntlet going, hey, we're setting a tone now. So by virtue of Yale being out there, is it goading Texas along a little bit more, making them go a little faster, a little sooner? Will that give them a speed? Currently, Washington, as we cross into the second 1,000, still in 2nd place, but certainly Stanford has crawled right up into Washington, and in just a few strokes, if they continue to move again, will overtake Washington. Will Washington answer that call?
So we do have some places that have changed here, and that is that Princeton has dropped back. Texas is now in 4th place. And starting to potentially, yep, they're chipping away just a little bit, is Texas. Right now, your leader, we got to talk about him. It's Yale. 3/4 of a length ahead of the rest of the field. The Ivy League continues to impress in these grand finals. As we approach 1250, it's going to be almost a full length for Yale, as Stanford now pushes their bow into 2nd place for the first time, just slightly ahead of Washington. Washington still sitting in 3rd place.
Trading surges. And
they are half a length, well, not quite half a length, maybe about a 1/3 of a length ahead of Texas. Princeton trying to maintain an overlap. I can see that Coxon really gyrating. She's doing what she can, but they're dropping off the pace. Sitting in 6th place is the Cavaliers of Virginia, but right now it is so proficient and it is doing it. Yale.
Yale came into this regatta ranked 2nd in this boat class, so to see them out the way that they are should not be a surprise necessarily, but hey, there are a lot of surprises happening in this regatta so far. So as we approach 500 meters to go, you could see Yale. I bet those women are smiling in this boat because they're sitting back and they just look even more aggressive. It looks like they definitely have more gears to go. Will Texas turn on the afterburners, as Adrian said? Will Washington and the surge that Stanford has had on them to walk in front of Washington, will that create a dogfight? I am absolutely certain, and Adrian will let us know what unfolds from here.
And no surprise, actually, that Yale is having this strong of a race in this category. They are the second-ranked team. They have had a phenomenal undefeated season, and now we are looking at them with a almost full boat-length lead over the rest of the field. It's what's happening behind them that's going to get interesting. Stanford just methodically pushing their bow a little bit closer towards Yale's lead. So Stanford now in the second-place position, sitting about 4 seats over Washington. Washington about 4 seats over Texas. Behind them, it will be Princeton, and then in the 6th place spot, Virginia. So as we come to the line, 200 meters here, it is Yale out in front, the Bulldogs with a just commanding performance here. Not a surprise that they are coming out this strong and just really upending this regatta in terms of the rankings. Stanford just barely holding off Washington. Washington with speed up their sleeves. We know that they've got it here. Texas right now in the 4th place position, but again, with a lot of speed in their sprint. What a race here. This is Princeton in the 5th place spot, Virginia in 6th, but it is going to be the Bulldogs of Yale taking this race wire to wire. Stanford behind them, Washington for 3rd, Texas in 4th, the Tigers of Princeton in 5th, Virginia in 6th. All right, the final 2 races of the day here at the 2022 NCAA Rowing Championships. We're looking at the petite final for our first 8s. In lane 1, Virginia. Lane 2, Pennsylvania. Lane 3, Yale. Lane 4, Ohio State. Lane 5, Michigan. Lane 6, Southern Methodist University.
All right, we're on the race course. This is final two of the Division I eights here at our 2022 NCAA championships. The penultimate race of our program, critical for the team points. And it looks like Yale trying to take an early lead here on the field. And we obviously saw their 2v8 just win a national championship. This is their Varsity 8, and they do have the lead early. Going with them is Pennsylvania.
That is Pennsylvania in lane 5, but it also right next to Yale in a close fourth place is going to be your Buckeyes out of Ohio State. And on the inside here in this white hall, rather than their traditional red hall, is SMU. So although Yale has jumped out to that lead, as David mentioned, and they seem to be walking, taking a seat by seat for those last 10 strokes or so, Pennsylvania's going with them, Ohio State's going with them, SMU is going with them. And really, other than the lead that we're seeing out of Yale early, none of these crews has dropped off the pace. And as they lengthen out, almost as if some of the crews are coming back into the race a little bit, having maybe lost ground on those initial super high strokes, they're regaining as they pick up momentum, as they lengthen out into their base rhythm. But you know, Yale's Varsity 8 that we're seeing right now approaching this first 500 meters. If you just watched the grand final of the 2V, this is a very similar race, apart from the fact that this Yale 1V has already taken a greater portion of lead than the 2V did in the previous run.
So through 500 meters, 3/4 of a length advantage for Yale over Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania with one deck over the Buckeyes of Ohio State, who have about a half a length on SMU, who has a deck on Michigan. Michigan with about a half a length on Virginia. So that's how the field was at 500 meters. I was watching the Yale coxswain. She is constantly looking to her right at that bow ball of Ohio State. And I can tell you what she's doing. She's saying, look, women, I don't want to see that bow ball anymore. I want you to open water on the Buckeyes. And they have done that, has Yale now. They have open water on the Buckeyes. The only boat that's still connected with Yale right now is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania and the Buckeyes almost dead level at 750.
And as we cross into 750, Yale, their blades, you can just see, especially on this beautiful calm water that we have today, just mirror-like water that we have today, you can see their blades just leaving the water and going straight down to the water at the catch. That's what you want to see as a coach. That's what you want to feel as an athlete. They are moving very uniformly. Shoot, look at the stripes down the side of their unisuits. Look at the hats of the three women in the stern there. They are very well matched with one another here. It is very clear that they are in tune with what is happening over there in lane 3 in that yellow boat, because they have certainly broken free of Ohio State and Pennsylvania, but Ohio State has said, hey, we want to get overlap back. In this third 500, we've seen Ohio State pick up speed as they go, so do not be surprised if they give Yale a run for their money during the second half of this race.
Yale with open water at 1,000 meters. It's a couple of seats. It's Ohio State now, maybe with a foot advantage on Pennsylvania. These three boats have pressed out considerably from the rest of the field. And in fact, Ohio State and Pennsylvania a full length ahead of fourth place SMU. SMU maintains about a 3-seat advantage on Michigan, and Michigan maintains almost a full length on Virginia. So it is relatively spaced out. I'm still watching the Yale coxswain. She's still looking at that bow of the biggest threat to her right now, which is the Buckeyes from Ohio State. The Buckeyes have moved out to a 4-seat advantage now on Penn as we come through 1250 with your leader, Yale.
And Yale, you can see the coxswain taking a look there, as David mentioned. She wants to make sure that she doesn't give up that stern deck, because in these races, you never know some other team's strategy because you're so focused on your own. And here's the thing, you can never be far enough ahead. We've seen that already, where teams have a late steamroll surge and they're able to make up a lot of time. Again, a full boat length is about 3 seconds for as fast as these teams are going right now. So in 600 meters or so, does Ohio State have 3 seconds faster of speed? They don't even need 3 seconds at this point, because they have eaten back into the lead. Their bow ball is now at least the stroke seat of the Yale coxswain, working its way in between 7 and 8 there. So over the next 200 strokes, the next 25 strokes or so, will they inch by inch, seat by seat toward that finish line? Pennsylvania still right there, going right with them. Pennsylvania still holding off SMU, who is solidly in 4th place right now, fighting against Michigan, with Virginia coming across, 500 meters to go, in 6th, but maintaining contact with Michigan.
All right, it is Yale again out in front. This is just a phenomenal regatta for the Bulldogs as they continue to lead. Ohio also right there. And we know from watching the previous races that they have some incredible closing speed. But right now, I'm looking at an open water lead for these top two boats. So Yale and Ohio just well out in front. Behind them, it's going to be Pennsylvania. Really great showing for that program here. Again, I can't say it enough. This is the first appearance for them as a team. And just what an initiation into the NCAA championships. So great showing for Pennsylvania. Super, super strong crew. Amongst these teams, we have kids that are racing at the international level. And this is a petite final. I mean, just amazing. So keeping your eyes on the race right in front of you. It is between Yale and Ohio State right now towards that finish line. It is Ohio State pulling up even with Yale as we come into these closing strokes. Really close here between Pennsylvania, Michigan, and SMU. Virginia a little bit off of the pace, but here we go. It is going to be Ohio to take this win away from Yale just in the final strokes. It will be the Buckeyes with their bow first across that line. Yale now, Pennsylvania holding on to third, Michigan fourth, SMU in fifth, and then here comes Virginia. All right, and here we go. Final race of the day. This will determine the national champion for Division I women's rowing for 2022. In lane 1, Princeton. Lane 2, Brown. Lane 3, Stanford. Lane 4, Texas. Lane 5, Washington. Lane 6, California.
And it all comes down to the Varsity 8 Grand Final, the last race of our 2022 NCAA Championships from Nathan Benderson Park. And we're going to bring you the action all the way down this race course. Team title on the line and all national championship in this boat class. Here they come, 6 boats across, tons of firepower. Stories that we could talk about for hours coming into this one. Here we go.
We have in the center lanes there with Stanford, Texas, and Washington. This is a rematch from last year, the 2021 first, second, and third places in this event. Also, the tiebreaker in the event of a tie comes down to this event. But of course, first, who's going to take this particular event off the line to be anticipated? As we've seen, the cream has risen to the top here, and so very little separates these crews off the get-go because it is just the first 230, 40 meters of this race at this point. And from the start, over the weekend so far, we've seen Texas start a little bit slow off the line, but they have changed that. They have righted the ship here, so to speak. They got themselves out there first in lane 4, got off the line the fastest, but absolutely it is Princeton on the far side who does have a slightly higher stroke rate that they are used to using as their base rhythm that is allowing them to surge up. And as soon as I say Princeton is surging, we also have Stanford lengthening out to their base rhythm, putting obvious pressure on Texas. But if you look at the body language of the athletes in lane 4, in that current leader Texas crew, they seem very calm right now. Stanford looks to be a little bit more aggressive in what they're doing. If you look at the black unisuits they're wearing, the white boat that they're in, their bodies are moving a little bit more emotionally. There is a lot on the line here. Not just a national championship, but the best race of your life. What can you lay down today? When the pressure's on with this many fast crews, gosh, a lot of these athletes have raced for their respective national teams across the world. But when you get in a boat with your collegiate team, dial into one another. How fast can you go together, represent yourself, represent your team, have the best race of your season and of your life so far?
This Texas Varsity 8, 60-0 this year. They have half a length advantage on second place Stanford. Stanford with a deck on Princeton. Princeton is holding off the rest of the crews that are really so bunched up. It's hard to even figure out where Brown, Washington, and California stand relative to one another. Right in front of us, Cal may have a seat on Washington. As we come through 750, it is a half a length lead for the Longhorns. They're trying to win another national championship, not only in this boat category, but also as a team. I think they're trying to turn the Texas two-step into the Texas two-peat. We'll see if they can do it. They did it through 850 meters. They look controlled. We'll see what happens. The team that is really giving them a fit here is Stanford in the adjacent lane 3. Stanford's bow ball right on about the 6th woman in the Texas boat. So that's the advantage that Texas has to try to win this national championship as they approach the halfway point. Still sitting in 3rd place. Really, really hard to tell between Princeton on the far side, California, and Washington. Cal is slightly ahead of Washington at this point, and maybe slightly ahead of Princeton as they come through the halfway point. But it's Texas right now, and they just continue to kind of actually pull away.
It's a Big 12, Pac-12 duel there in the center lanes with Stanford and Texas. You have 2 out of the Ivy League vying for spots over there, Brown and Princeton on the far side. Will their battle over in the far lanes push into Stanford, again putting pressure onto Texas? And then on the inside lanes with Washington and California seeing each other throughout the season, will they be able to use that confidence, that race, to push up into Stanford and Texas's lead? But for as much as Stanford was trying to take away from Texas's lead and use a little bit of emotion early, a little bit of early gusto to help get a little more pep behind their oars, Texas has really stayed incredibly calm and methodical. Even though there is pressure on them by the trailing crews, they aren't letting it get to them. Now, with that emotion that Stanford threw out early, it may give Princeton just enough of an edge that Princeton coxswain would hopefully be looking at Stanford and saying, hey, I want them in 200 meters so that we have a chance at taking this thing. We are on this outside, but we came into this race ranked number 2 in the country in this event. We can turn it on, turn on the afterburners. The question is, will Texas turn on theirs? Because we've seen them have them.
It's Texas. They're trying to break the overlap. I'm watching Rachel Rain look to her left. She sees a bow ball from Stanford. She says, I don't want to see it anymore. They're moving away from Stanford. What are we going to see in the last 500 meters of the Varsity 8 final here at the 2022 NCAA Championships. This is going to be a Texas repeat. They have maybe a seat of open water. Stanford is pushing. They are trying, but they just can't seem to latch on to Texas. Stanford with a 3/4 length advantage. It's going to come right down to the tape for the bronze medal. You've got Princeton, you've got California, and you've got Washington that are separated by probably about 15 total feet as we pass it to you, Adrian.
Stanford is pushing because they feel the pressure by Princeton. They may have sprinted a little bit early trying to get back into that Texas lead, but Texas is still in command.
The Longhorns way out in front here. The connection between this crew is palpable. What do you say to a crew that has not lost a race? What do you say? It is not just eyes on the prize, it is eyes on the process. Every single stroke, one stroke at a time, but every single stroke as fast as possible. And that's exactly what is happening here as Texas comes to the line. It could be a repeat for them. There is that new sheriff in town because that could be the national championship team overall. It's going to come down to points here. We are all over the map with the points. But Texas, dominant, well out in front, open water for them. Just unbelievable here as we come to the line. Stanford in that second place position. Again, points. Princeton right there. Princeton in California. Washington taking up that stroke rate. Can they possibly move into that third place position? It is the Longhorns for the win. The Cardinal taking that second place position. Princeton holding on to the bronze. California, then Washington. Brown coming into that sixth place position. What a race.
It is Lindsay Shoup and myself, Adrian McConnell, David Wyant over there, your commentators for today. First off, we'd like to congratulate all of our teams for their outstanding achievements in getting here to this national championship. And we'd also like to thank our hosts, the University of Central Florida, as well as Nathan Benderson Park Conservancy for their partnership, commitment, and success in hosting this national championship. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Simon O'Neill. She is our Division I Committee Chair, and she will be presenting the awards today. We're going to wait for just a minute as we get all of our athletes in line. If we can get our fours in order here, third place, second place, and then first place, to line up over on the side of the stage. Thank you. Come on down, second place and first place fours, please. First up, we would like to present the third place boat for our Division I 4 Grand Final, Texas. With a time of 7:07, coxswain Carly Leganzowski, stroke Jane McGee, Nadia Yorochuk, Caitlin Bithelette, Marlo Eldridge,
And in second place, our runner-up from The Ohio State University with a time of 7:06.4. Ohio State. Jamie Harris, Kristen DeVolve, Gabrielle Schmidt, Elena Hawthorne, and coxswain Charlie Ulmer. And your 2022 NCAA Women's Rowing Varsity 4 champion in a time of 7:05.2, Princeton University. Haley Mead, Catherine Garrett, Natasha Neitzel, Lauren Johnson, and coxswain Rupa Venkataraman. Will our first, second, and third place second varsity eights come line up? Now for your second varsity eights. We'll begin with third place and a time of 6:24.5. Washington.
Coxswain Grace Murdoch. Stroke seat Carmen McNamara Smith. Joy Zier. Catherine Slack. Anharad Broughton. Isabel Van Upzeeland. Mickey Martinsik, Brittany Chappelle, and Fiona Shields. Thank you, Washington. Next up, the runner-up in this boat for this year's Division I second varsity 8, Stanford, with a time of 6:23.2.
Paloma Sakira, Julia Braz, Rebecca Lee, Louise Bachman, Sophia Dixon, Lucy Burrell, Brianna Perry, Julietta Camahort, and coxswain Rachel Miller. And now the 2022 NCAA Women's Rowing Champion in the second Varsity 8 in a time of 6:21.1, Yale.
Coxswain Esha Bhattacharya, Katie King-Smith, Nicole Martinez, Christiana Congdon, Phoebe Campbell, Mia Levy, Anna Scott, Christina Barmpau, and Mette Cox-Nielsen.
Will first, second, and third place in the Varsity 8s please line up? We'll begin with third place in the NCAA Division I Varsity 8s in a time of 6:17.7 from Princeton University. Lucy Coven, Zoe Shesky, Lydia Rosen, Annika Maxon, Catherine George, Florence Donald, Camille Vandermeer, Anne de Cruz Dijon, and Cox Hannah Diaz. And now the runner-up in the Varsity 8 in a time of 6:15.4 is Stanford. Aja Zakowski, Isabella Battistoni, Iris Cluck, Esther Briz Zamorano, Caitlin Canast, Taylor English, Letty Cabot, Caitlin Gildersleeve, and coxswain Caroline Rickson. And now for the 2022 NCAA Division I Varsity 8 champion in a time of 6:10.7, the Longhorns from Texas. Caitlin Nifton, Francesca Raggi, Aspasia Christodoulidis, Etta Carpenter, Anna Jensen, Susanna Temming, Sophia Calabrese, Lisa Gutfleich, coxed by Rachel Rain. Will our top 4 team finishers please line up?
And for the 4th place team in this year's NCAA Division I Rowing Championships, the University of Washington. We would like to invite, hold on. We would like to invite the coaching staff for the University of Washington, head coach Yaz Farouk, as well as her support staff to join us. And now for our third place team in this year's Division I Rowing Championships, Princeton University. We'd like to invite you up as a group, along with head coach Lori Dauphiny and her support staff. And now for our national runner-up. The runner-up this year for our NCAA Division I Rowing Championships is Stanford University. We'd like to invite head coach Derek Burns and his support staff to please join us on stage. And now the 2022 Division I Rowing National Champions, Texas.
Head coach Dave O'Neill, will you please step forward and accept your team award? All the athletes, coaches, and support staff as well. Carly Legendzowski, Jane McGee, Nadia Yaroshuk, Caitlin Boudalette, Marlo Eldridge, Elise Payne, Rachel Craycroft, Anna Garrison, Olivia Fogarty, Hannah Metcalf, Amber Harwood, Grace Holland, Kathia Nitsch, Parker Illingworth, Mariel Corbett, Cassandra Korvink-Kuczynski, Caitlin Essie, Rachel Rain, Caitlin Nifton, Francesca Raggi, Aspasia Christodoulidis, Etta Carpenter, Anna Jensen, Anna Temming, Sophia Calabrese, Lisa Gutfleich, and again, head coach Dave O'Neill.